So on the conversation today, the missions we serve and the people who rely on them matter most. We know that. But sometimes fulfilling those missions means setting aside egos, titles, and even power in order to try new and different ways of doing things. Courage is required to do that. And today's panelists are living examples of that courage today. So to set the stage, I just quickly want to frame the conversation. A merger happens when two companies or organizations join forces as equals to form a brand new identity, sharing control and resources in pursuit of a stronger future together. An acquisition, on the other hand, is when one organization absorbs another, usually a smaller one, which then operates under the acquiring organization's direction. So in short, mergers are often about combining strengths for growth. Acquisitions are more about expanding and adaptation. The lines blur. People use different terms, when we're talking to community, but there are standard legal terms around that, and that's what we wanted to discuss. So today, though, this isn't about the technical definitions. It's about the human side of the work and the work that you all have to do. It's about the leaders who stood at the crossroads and had the courage to make difficult choices for the greater good. I deeply appreciate the panelists who are here with us, willing to share their real experiences and lessons learned. So if they wouldn't mind joining me on the stage in this corner table. Hi, we have Miss Asia Ciaravino, CEO of San Pedro Playhouse. We have Mary Garr, CEO of Family Service Association. We have Evelyn Delgado, retiring CEO of Healthy Futures of Texas. And we have Liza Jensen, retired CEO of Cenikor, formerly Alpha Home. And now to guide us through their powerful stories, I'm honored to hand things over and introduce our moderator, Barbara Greene, CEO of Greene & Associates. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm used to standing, but it feels weird to be up on this stage. I got to find out who's in the room, okay? So who's an MLP graduate? Master Leadership Program. Would you stand up, please? Okay. Stay standing. Stay standing. Hey, Tony, good to see you. Leadership San Antonio graduates, stand up. Wow. Who's the wannabe for the 50th year for LSA? Who's going to apply? Yay. So we definitely have people who are dedicated to you as nonprofit organizations in this community. Now, who's the rest of the people in this room? I have a feeling that all four of you know everyone in this room. I bet you could say all their names. Most of them, right? Mary was the last one to get our group together here, so I knew she was talking to everyone out there. So there's a quote out there. Have you heard this one? Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. You know who said it? Guesses? Who are the guesses? You know? Guesses? Helen Keller. Ah. The 3-year-old knows Helen. The 80-year-old and my folks that I coach over in Asia, they know Helen Keller. And you think about her life, and when we are all here together. And one of the words that comes to my mind is the word grateful. And did you know that in September we have World Gratitude Day? It's really important. We're going to start it today. So we're going to need, whoopsie, where's my resource? Here. And I have something. Will you take one of these and open it up? Who knows about my quote cards? Yay! We got quote cards out there. Okay, that's all right. I'll help you. Because we're here to help. You're going to open that up. Open it up. And Lisa, will you say to everyone what your card says?
I am grateful for the joys of life in abundance. Epicurus.
I am grateful for the joys of life, and what was the rest of it?
In abundance.
And abundance. Okay. Think about that. We want you to think about what you're grateful for. today, because we are definitely grateful for you. How about you, Mary?
I don't have one.
Oh, I thought you were going to. There you go. You just had one. Sorry. So,
Open these. Oh, here. Oh.
so we got this going on, and then Mary says,
rehearse this.
I don't have one. I wonder how Mary might have felt left out.
Today there are new pleasures, new challenges, new magic. Ruth Carter Stapleton.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay.
Creativity makes life better. Asia Ciaravino.
Read it. Okay. But you got her quote. Now we're going to put it on your card. Oh, this is a good one, too. Pause when something is beautiful and good, then totally immerse in the experience of savoring it. Whoa. You get to keep that one.
That was a good one. The experience of experiences is being alive. Carlos Castañeda.
Wow. The being alive. And how many of you have heard about the word legacy? The life goes on, right? And many of our ministries do that. So today, you're here for a reason. So think about what it is that you really want to leave with today. Maybe it's somebody that you haven't met, or you want to get to know them better. Maybe it is an actual to-do. I must do this because our mission is to merge with somebody else in the next 3 years. Maybe not tomorrow, next day. What you and us all together today have the opportunity, and I got a sneak preview, are their stories. Each of their stories are different. There are common themes, and so what we decided to do for you is to really take a look at starting with what do we really, why are we doing this, okay? And the considerations. And then we want to get into board and stakeholders communicating, talk about courage, communicating in ways that sometimes are uncomfortable. The other part of this is taking a look at the whole strategic roadmap of what is the road that we have to travel, or what are we making up? Because everything, who knows, we have a plan and then sometimes it goes haywire, right? And then last but not least at all is to be able to talk about the challenges, the opportunities, the joys, and what we are all doing. So what we're going to have, each of them going to talk about their own stories, their situations, for a few minutes, and we want you to hear about those. And then we're going to dive deeper into questions. But we're also going to flip this right now. We're going to start with your questions. So they're going to listen right now to what is on top of your mind. What is the one question that you would really like to hear from them about, that you would like to get more insight? We're not going to answer those questions right this second. We don't want to get an idea of what is on top of your mind and brought you here today. So who's got a question? Shout it out, hold it out.
Yeah. Or we'll run the mic so that
Yes.
we can get this on. We are recording the session today. So if you do have a question.
There's a question right back there. Yay. I need my football.
Hi, Perry Rocheger with the H.E. Butt Foundation. My question is, if you were, ranking reasons to merge, what would be the top reason why an organization would want to merge with another organization?
Okay, thank you. Top reason for merging. Got that? Okay, who else?
Hold on, Molly.
Good. Scott, you know everybody in the room.
I'm Molly Dupnick. My big question is when you went through the process, what would you advise other people were your hardest things to do and what you would have done differently?
Hardest things to do and what you would have done differently. Another question. We've got one over here in the middle and one in the back, and then Laura, and then we stop for this one. Okay?
I've got a mic, so I'll go. Christopher Mammon with the D. Howard Foundation. A question that I have is just the financial implications of merging, what all is involved, what we should project.
All right, financials. Thank you. And we had back here Craig, and then we had somebody over here.
Yeah, Craig Berkowitz with the Jewish Federation of San Antonio. The question I have is what are the different reactions of funders, right, when you're looking to merge organizations? Is it positive? Is it negative? And why so?
So what to undo?
Well, I'm looking at we have a lot of funders, right? People that give us grants. Is this something that how would they view this?
How would they do this? Okay. View it. Thank you. Oh, we had one other question right here in the middle. Let's go to her first. Right here in the middle.
Hi, Dixie Maddox, House of Neighborly Service. I was hoping that y'all might speak to the exits and safeguards for an organization. We're all loving and optimistic and whatnot, but what if?
What if? Okay, thank you. One back over here. Hi.
Ada Science with Boys and Girls Clubs of San Antonio. I'd like to know, through the process of a merger or acquisition, what support was most helpful?
Okay.
And what support did you not have that in hindsight would have been extremely helpful for the process?
Okay, what was most helpful and what was missing? Is that what I'm hearing? And then Laura, you want to close it out with a question that you had?
Excuse me.
You know you need 8 hugs a day.
Yes, I love lots of hugs. So I wanted to kind of tag on Chris's comment, but I think there's a myth around, when you merge, you're going to save all this money. So can you speak to the financial myths about what really happens with money and mergers? And then I think the other really important topic is around the ego of volunteer board members.
Okay.
And, how do you get past that? Okay. Yeah, or this power grab versus, hey, you're here to sustain the mission. This is not about your power and your ego. You are a volunteer whose job it is to propel the mission.
And Laura, one real quick suggestion on that is read the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, by Marshall Goldsmith. And that'll help you with the egos, for sure. So we've got lots of good questions. What do you think, panelists? Okay, so we have lots to share with them. So we are starting right now. I'm going to throw it to you, Liza.
So, good morning, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here today. My name is Liza Jensen. I'm the former CEO of Alpha Home, a women's residential treatment program here in San Antonio. We've been here since 66 years. I'm here because we were acquired by Cenikor, the state of Texas' second largest nonprofit. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about this. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have been working for 38 years in our community. My personal mission statement is to honor God with my spiritual gifts by working with vulnerable populations, specifically the mentally ill and those with substance use. I've been the CEO of Alpha Home for the last 4.5 years. Alpha Home entered into an acquisition, meaning that our small nonprofit, $4 million, was acquired by Cenikor, a large nonprofit. We did that specifically. We were not in distress. Some acquisitions can be hostile takeovers. Some of them can be friendly. Ours was friendly. Our board, our finances, we were not in trouble. We could have gone on, but 5 years from now, with the projections when we started this journey 2 years ago, we knew that something was changing in the community, in the environment, in the state, in the funding. And so my board made a strategic decision to look at diversifying and what we could do about it. So you're going to hear my story specifically about what to consider to make the decision whether or not to be acquired. Thank you, and I welcome any questions when we have that period going on.
It's Asia. Just to give your...
Hi, good morning. My name is Asia Ciaravino, and I'm proud to serve as the CEO of San Pedro Playhouse and the Classic Theater of San Antonio. So why I'm here is, As you can see, we had 2 households. Now, what you would think about 2 theaters coming together, that it would be a really natural fit, right? It's not. Mergers, acquisitions, strategic partnerships are really, really challenging. And egos are excuse me, hold please. There we go. Costume malfunction. The problem with bringing people together is that there are a lot of people with differing feelings about the next step in their lives as an organization, correct? And when we came together, you would think that the San Pedro Playhouse was this big entity, 100 and almost 13 years old, versus Classic at that time. How old were we? 15 years old. So bringing these 2 agencies together, you'd think that the big one had all the financial security and the little one had none. It was quite the opposite. So when we came together, we were really 2 organizations that needed each other. The Classic Theater was homeless at the time, and San Pedro Playhouse has been in the big San Pedro Playhouse on Ashby and San Pedro for almost 100 years. So they needed a space as well, right, to come in and live with the Classic and San Pedro together. So when we came together, our boards really were resistant at first, but they knew that this was the only way towards giving them a home and giving them a new life and really sharing resources and having the ability to be stronger together. But to the point of, like, what is the biggest point that you asked Perry in why would you merge? I really think it's because together you are better, no matter what. Especially in the arts. I mean, I know that's in health and human services as well and other nonprofits, but being together with all of that great talent in one space, you can do so much. It is expensive. And thanks to Kronkowski, the only way we were able to answer the other question is that's a very expensive venture, getting together and doing something like that, right? But Kronkowski gave us the ability to bring our boards together and do some strategic planning and talking and having really difficult conversations. What mergers, acquisitions, strategic partnerships are all about is difficult conversations. Are you willing to put your ego aside, put the mission to the center, which is not always going to end up in your favor, and do the right thing? And that's the hardest part of all of this work, I feel like. There they are. Look at all of our Jersey boys and Stanzi up there just singing, living together in harmony. I really wanted to get you guys up for a second because I think you look like you need some energy. So let's stand up for 1 second, just 1 second. And because we're theater people, we're just going to reach up. We need to kind of like get our body going a little bit. It's morning. Did you guys have coffee? Everybody have coffee? You feeling good? Okay, stretch it out to the side. You got it. You're doing so good. See, this is what a merger, acquisition, strategic partner feels like. It feels like this. It's a little uncomfortable and weird, but after you get done with it, do you ever regret standing up and moving? No, you do not. And I don't want to hear anyone say that you do, because you don't. Now hug your neighbor and pretend like that's the other board. Pretend like that's the other board.
You gotta hug our neighbor.
Okay, we're back.
I will.
And we're back. And we're back together. We're back together again. You guys just did some strategic partnership work. It was hard and a little uncomfortable, and you stood up and you moved, and guess what? Don't you feel better? Awesome.
Do you think she's in theater? So how many have been to a playhouse, the San Pedro Playhouse and with Asia? Yeah.
Hairspray. Who saw Hairspray in this room?
Oh.
Who's going to come see Real Women Have Curves? Everybody in this whole room? Thank you so much.
Live performances in the future here. All right, so you got a glimpse of 2, right? Two stories, and we're going to take a deeper dive, though, into Liza. Lisa, Scott, will you go back to Lisa's slide, because we're going to take a little bit deeper dive into her story.
All right, so I mentioned in my introduction, so why did we do it? You asked the question, what is the most important thing about this consideration? And that, for me, was to keep the mission of Alpha Home alive. The average woman who is at Alpha Home has an annual income of $5,000 a year. About 70% of them have one or more child in child protective custody. It is so important for San Antonio not to lose the services that Alpha Home provides. So while we understood that this landscape was changing, my board made a strategic decision about 2.5 years ago to look at ways to diversify. I had 4 specific goals, and they're up there with the board. One was to secure the financial future of Alpha Home, obviously increase access because we are a much needed service in our community, and finally, to stabilize the workforce. If you're a nonprofit, you have lived where I've walked, which is high turnover in staff. We are a training institute where we teach them and then they go for higher pay someplace else, and we're churning them out. And so consequently, taking a look at this, the decision was that we saw some change in funding. It used to be we got general revenue so that we could put it where we need it, so that the women who came to treatment who had no means at all could get the care that they needed. We started seeing changes where it was more problem focused specific. Did we want to build a new building, or did we want to add a person? And it made it harder because those monies were targeted to put it in our general revenue. The other thing that we saw is that in our space, at least, because the need in the community was so great, other individuals were going into women's residential treatment. And so that meant there was a lot more competitiveness with grants. It shouldn't be that way. There's plenty of need in the community. However, nonetheless, what we saw was, well, we funded you for so long, we're going to fund somebody different this time. And finally, what we saw was state funding did not keep up with the need. And being transparent here, it cost Alpha Home $140 to have somebody in residential treatment from 45 days to 90 days. We were getting reimbursed 113 days for 30 days, and then it dropped down to $83. Okay, do the math. It eventually was going to kill us. And while we did have a positive financial situation, it was not sustainable. So consequently, my board was very gracious, and everybody agreed. I was the champion of this, is that it's not about Liza Jensen. A title is a title. I don't need that, because what's in my heart is how to make the service live on beyond any one person. If a facility is tied to the charismatic one-person leader, it's one and done. And so this was creating the infrastructure for us to move on. And so what were the strategic partner considerations? The first thing was that, thank the Lord, that Cenikor's mission, vision, and value aligned with Alpha Homes. The other thing is that we looked at what programs did they have, what programs did we have, where was the alignment in those programs? And then the part of it was, did the consideration of being acquired meet my board's objectives? We wanted to make sure that our employees were stable, that they were happy, that they had a competitive wage. Well, if you're a nonprofit of only $4 million a year, that's really hard. Cenikor's benefits had CEU reimbursement. They had school tuition reimbursement. They had a mentorship program. They had a match on your 401k where you put in 5%, they put in 10%. They had a leadership training. They had a book club that focuses on leadership and problem solving and critical conversations. I could not have achieved that on my own as a small nonprofit. And the happiness and the sustainability of my employees was right up there. Next slide, please. And so if you take a look at some of the things that are on the next slide, the cultural fit was so important. So as a leader, I have tried to make inclusion and feedback, and it's okay to look at an opportunity. I can't fix what I don't know about. And so anything on the table is an opportunity to make it better. And so taking a look at all of those things, the transparency was critical. So how did we do that? Somebody asked the question earlier about how did you handle the communication. We had town hall meetings, we had listening sessions, I had an open door policy. Unfortunately for Alpha Home, I have to tell you that while we were doing this, I'm getting to know them, they're getting to know Alpha Home, it got out in the community that we were acquired. We hadn't been, my board was still in the process of making that decision. Unfortunately, there was a lot of gossip in the community about we're losing our identity, Alpha Home's gonna close, we're not gonna be doing the same thing anymore. All of that created to the chaos of trying to make this as smooth for the employees and most importantly for our clients as possible. So one of the things that we took a look at is I actually went out and I talked to people in their organization. I talked to people who had looked at acquisition but walked away from it. And I also talked to people about what was the reputation. Now, at this particular time, 19 months ago, there was litigation against Cenikor. The litigation was some former clients who were trying to do a class action. It got thrown out. But that's one of the things that you have to consider, not only looking at the finance, not only looking at the HR employee benefits, not only looking at their clients and their outcomes. I can tell you that Cenikor is HHSC gold standard for treatment in the state of Texas. And so you got people that hate him and you got people that love him. I can tell you that when we were inquired in March that this journey was critical because what I saw was looking at outcomes, which is important, customer satisfaction, staff engagement satisfaction, but what are the outcomes? Every city that Cenikor has acquired an organization has increased access in the community by 18%, okay? 18%. It takes an investment to expand services, and because they're so large, they were able to do it. The other thing that made them successful, which is one of the reasons my board wanted to join them, was their business model. Now, I'm going to say something that maybe some of you may not agree, but it's what my board and I firmly believe, and that is that in order for nonprofits to succeed, we have to stop thinking of ourselves as nonprofits, but not completely, but focus on the business, the bottom line. Thank you. Yeah, you have to be able to make money in order to serve the people that we need to serve. Cenikor's business model was unlike anything that I had ever seen. We focused nothing but on nonprofit grants and state funds and rates. Cenikor's model was a 75-25. Well, what does that mean? 75 was the mission of treating unfunded. That's how they were able to grow in a community. The other 25% was they took commercial insurance. Why? Because one Aetna Magellan value option pays for 4 unfunded people in the community. That was the business model that was sustainable. Now, I have to tell you, I received a lot of criticism about that because, oh my gosh, we're selling over to Big Brother. I have to tell you, the funders that we met with absolutely loved that we were thinking into the future, that we were thinking about sustainability. The big thing I think here is that the due diligence includes all of the things related to their outcomes. You know, the proof is in the pudding. You don't have to believe what the acquiring organization says. What does their customer satisfaction say? What do their recovery rates look like? What are their outcomes? And that's where the proof was in the pudding. I think finally is meeting with key stakeholders. I met with everybody that I could talk to. I met with funding people. I met with other United Way partners who were in the same space and other partners who were not in the same space to talk with them about this decision, because up front, transparency is critical. It's critical with your employees because if you're not transparent, then they question, and the trust that you've worked so hard to get is just not there. My key takeaway is that if you are thinking about this, it is important for you to do your homework. And that due diligence point up there is that you need to be able to take a look at if there's any hard stops. So when I was interviewing one of the Cenikor Corpus directors about her acquisition, I asked the question of everybody I interviewed, if you could do it over, what things would you change? And she gave me 3 points, and those 3 points I built into my contract. One of them was that she really felt that their Charlie's Place, some of you may know that in Corpus Christi, is that they changed the name from Charlie's Place to Cenikor Corpus. Well, she said, if I could do it differently, I would actually have in the contract that we keep the name Alpha Home because of the reputation that we have built because of that. And so our actual legal name is Alpha Home San Antonio. And for 3 years, that is going to be in play. And at the end of 3 years, we'll be talking about exactly, do we want to keep it the same? In every situation, and Cenikor has 12 other nonprofits in the state of Texas, some in New Mexico, and we're expanding into Oklahoma right now, is that everybody was like, no, we need to be Cenikor Corpus or Cenikor Dallas because the name recognition of a large nonprofit had so many other benefits than focusing on that. Now, let me just tell you about myself. I stepped down as CEO. My board became my advisory board. So they still remain engaged. They still remain in oversight with that. And that was critical because these board members, number one, had always supported me no matter what outside the box idea I had. And number two, they were committed to the mission about Alpha Home Services remaining in the community. Egos had to be put aside. As for myself, I have stayed on board as a consultant with Cenikor with my specialty in working with organizations who are thinking about acquiring, talking to them about my experience, the difficulties that we had, and what we can do differently. The truth of the matter is that we're entering a climate, in my humble opinion, that is going to be different than anything we've ever seen as a funder or as a nonprofit. And if we don't think out the box, and if we don't put some structural things in place, it is not going to bode well. There was somebody at HHSC who retired not too long ago, and one of the things that Tina said was that if you're a nonprofit under $5 million and you have not considered acquisition or merger or partnership, then you will not be around in the next 5 years. It is only going to get harder. And I don't mean to say that to scare you, but I'm saying plant the seed now, think about what you're doing, and be strategic. And I will entertain questions when the time comes.
What we're going to do, thank you, Liza. So a lot of the questions that were asked were answered right there, yet we've got 3 other people's perspectives of what's happened here. But I really appreciate the way you were just go for it. Just tell them like it is. And the truth with your compassion. So I appreciate it. We're going to go back to you for a moment. So let's head back to Asia's slides. Because I want you to focus on that board of directors relationship.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide, Scott. Thank you so much. So when we were talking about boards and bringing them together, how many people have challenging boards? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. How many people have boards that have opportunity for growth? How does that sound? So when the boards really came together and knew that they had to solve this homeless solution for classic theater, it took them a lot of time to just sit down and have conversations and get to know one another. And my job at that moment was really to facilitate those moments for them so that they felt comfortable and they could be honest with one another. And really talk about the fact that San Pedro Playhouse at that time in 2023 was in financial crisis. I'm going to be real honest, and I've said this in big groups of people before, so it's nothing new to my team hearing it. San Pedro Playhouse had $14,000 in the bank account. When I took it over, it was a $3 million agency, and Classic Theater, on the contrary, had over 100 in the bank account, 200. So that's something shocking, right? Thinking about this big agency that has such history with this smaller agency, and you would think, well, it would be Classic that would be absorbing San Pedro Playhouse. But because of the history of San Pedro Playhouse, we felt like coming together and preserving both brands was the best opportunity to pursue. So when we were talking, the boards were talking together, they would have cocktail hours together, we would facilitate strategic planning meetings, we brought in attorneys, thanks to Kronkowski, because that stuff isn't cheap, is it? Our attorneys, we love them so much. And thank God, that's one of the things that somebody asked, what is a critical thing to have involved in the process of a merger, acquisition, or strategic partnership? Get an attorney involved ASAP. Make sure you have someone that understands your business, that really loves it, and can see you down that path in a way that you can do this together. Because without ours, I don't know what we would have done. Jan King was so amazing, incredible. I recommend her, highly recommend, thumbs up. So when we're looking at board stewardship, it's really about creating those opportunities, bringing them together, and having the discussion, right? So many times I think that we are in the room with our boards and we say nothing. How many feel like that at times with their boards where this could have been an email as opposed to a discussion? And I really feel like the most important part of getting your boards together is being able to have honest conversations. So we facilitated those times, Kronkowski supported that, and we were able for them to come to the point where they said, this was a good opportunity, but we want to keep the integrity of the classic theater of San Antonio. We don't want that brand to go away. It's a niche in San Antonio that needs to be filled. We have no other classic theater going on in San Antonio that specifically is dedicated to the mission of what the classic does and the classic education repertory. So we needed that as well at San Pedro Playhouse. As you know, we produce big musicals. We do classic musicals, of course, but we do contemporary musicals, and we do a lot of other plays and things, but classic has a very specific niche that we didn't want to erase. And so when they came to the table together, they said, we want to do this and come together, but we don't want to call it a merger or an acquisition. And it shouldn't be. It needed to be a strategic partnership, so everyone felt like they had equal say and equal presence and equal brand. And so at that time, one of our amazing team members, Rick, he's right here, ladies and gentlemen, he did our rebrand, San Pedro Playhouse and Classic Theater, because we wanted a fresh start for everyone. It's like when you get divorced, you don't want to stay in the same house. You want to go to a new house, right? I mean, come on, I've never been divorced, but I heard that that's how it is. So, just from other people's experience. So you want to go to a new house and have a pretty new house all together, right? And so we created brands that worked in conjunction with one another and were harmonious as opposed to dissident, which they were before. So we were able to create these great new brands. We were doing all of this merger / acquisition / strategic partnership while we were trying to get the organizations back from the dead, which was a really challenging time. But I think that that's also why our boards were so open to talking about it, because they knew that they needed each other ultimately. And then communication plan was essential. That started all from the board, making sure that every word came out from the board, every single human involved was talked to, everybody knew exactly what was happening. This is our team at the Playhouse, a lot of our team, and we talked about it all the time, didn't we? Like every day. It wasn't a surprise, and to your point, transparency is key. Keeping it transparent and above. Now, also to your point, rumors are going to spread. You can't control what other people say. All you can control is what you do and how you behave and show up, right? And I don't really care what other people say. It's what we're doing right now to make an impact. And we knew that this partnership was going to be really, really good together. Now, to address one issue that you guys were talking about in what are the scary parts about it, it's scary because funders, not all funders, but some funders think, okay, you guys are doing a strategic partnership, awesome, we're going to pay you half as much. Right? Who feels like that? Who is scared of that? Really raise your hand and say yes. I know you are, because I can feel you in this room feeling that. And that's the truth of how we all feel as nonprofits coming together. But honestly, they don't. The funders in this room and the people who really care about the work that we do are going to understand that you're coming together, and that's even expensive. The first couple years that you come together, our budget went way up because we were bringing on a new child that was 15 years old, our teenager that we brought into the house. And so it was more expensive. But this communication plan board, obviously our external audience, we met with all of the donors. We met with everyone that would listen to us. We met with all of the city people, city council, you know, all those humans. And what does that say? Preserving legacy. I already talked about that. So really making sure, yes, I need glasses. Really making sure that preserving the two brands was most important when we were talking about strategic partnership. I think you can do it. Anyone can do it. It's just having everybody's ego get out of the way as much as possible, right? And you spoke to that so well, and that's so much about what it all is. I think the key takeaway is hyper-communication all the time. You know those annoying people that communicate? That's me. With my board and with everyone around me. And the more that you communicate and the more that you have the difficult conversations and the more that you tell the truth, everybody wins. But it's not easy, is it? Right, ladies? Do you guys want to dance or anything right now? Do you feel like this is a dance break time? No?
A dance break time later.
Okay, thank you. I just feel like everybody's a little restless.
Oh, it's because you're restless.
Okay,
you know?
You're right. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me.
I am curious, though, how many of you actually have stand-up meetings at your office?
Walking meetings, running meetings.
Stand-up meetings actually last shorter.
Yeah, they do. They're great.
And people want to know how to save time. That is definitely one way to save time. So, two different stories, two different situations. One of the things that I want to say to you about the communication, we've worked with quite a few organizations who've been bought or merged. And the presidents out there will tell all the people in the room that I will still talk with you, and it might be this. I don't have anything that I can share with you right now, but I'm going to show up on your 2 a.m. shift, true story, by the way, and let you know that I see you and that I appreciate you, because we still have a job to do to help our end user and our customers. And so it is still that sometimes it's the CEO, the general manager, the board chair showing up to just be with you. So keep that in mind, as part of that is a way of communicating. The other part that you all talked about was that whole idea of showing up and modeling the way as leaders. And that's going to even get more important because you're magnified, right? Magnified. So Mary, you've been through a lot in your life. This is just a piece of cake, what's happening today, right? Everybody knows Mary from Family Services. You want to go ahead and share what is happening in the world of strategic partnerships and mergers and acquisitions for you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara. And I'm glad to be on this stage with the team. And unlike those who've been standing, I would fall off the stage, I think, if I started standing up and trying to talk. So I'm going to just stay seated because I know y'all can see me from up here. So on that note, family service, I think most of you know family service. It's been around since 1903, 122 years old. We either are, have been, or possibly will be partners with you at some point because of the work we do. But that's a good thing. Because we're so deeply rooted in our communities, we have over 30 programs and services across a lot of different areas. And that goes back to this conversation. So since 1903, family service has continued to evolve and develop, grow by acquiring entities or merging with over decades, also divesting of programs to other entities when it made the most sense. And it's always tied to that strategic planning and evolution of what are the best ways to meet the needs of the communities in which we serve, keeping that up front and center. So in the last decade, you may or may not know that we actually have acquired a school. We actually gifted a hospital and acquired a church. All buildings, but all tied back to programs and being able to meet needs and all the work that goes to that. When I first started at Family Service a little over 7 years ago, there was a local nonprofit that did approach us and talk to us about could they be acquired by us because they were struggling and they were really at risk of shutting down. Conversations were going well, but going back to egos, their board started to look at it and said no, they really wanted to find a way to keep it moving forward. Now, thank goodness it worked out for them and they are still in existence today. It could just have easily have gone the other way and we would have lost a needed service. So, that could have been a different opportunity. Now, fast forward to now with all the work that we have been doing and are still doing with all the recent acquisitions I just talked about. And we did have a local funder come to us. I don't know if that funder wants me to say who it is or not. Back last winter and said, hey, there is a deep-rooted 50-year-old nonprofit serving on the south side. It's public knowledge now, so I can say it's the Pedro Community Center. And they are at risk of shutting down, and they really provide a needed mission and supports in that part of town. You work in that part of town. You don't have a physical presence there. We really think you should consider acquiring this organization, and we'll give you a little bit of help here. And by the way, these funders here have something called a sustainability fund that isn't covering everything, but covers some. We're working through that, all of that. But good news there. And if our first words are like, there's no way we can do it with everything going on. And with one of my staff members, it was much more colorful language than that. But in that, as we started looking into it, if you know who that person is, you'll know. But it aligned with our mission. The work was needed. The needs are in that community, and we totally understood why we were reached out to. And it's like, oh man, we really do need to do this on top of everything else we're doing. So we started the conversation, and of course, when it goes back to all those different roles, the boards have to decide right up front, and the boards have to commit. So it goes back to the why, which I'll talk about at the end. And so with both boards agreeing to that, then all the other stuff has to go on in terms of how you're going to make it happen. And by the way, it's still not done. And this conversation started in February with us, but was actually happening for quite a while before that with with Presa. So first off, on that legal piece there, absolutely have a legal team involved. You really want to make sure you're doing it right, especially if there's real property like buildings and vehicles or anything else out there. Make sure that is all transferred. And just because one nonprofit's going into another nonprofit doesn't mean that tax exempt status of the building transfers. You have to reapply or you're going to be paying taxes, and you don't want to do that because it's expensive. And then also you have to make sure that that acquired organization's board, they understand that they still have fiscal, fiduciary, and legal responsibilities and obligations tied to the role as board members. They can't just quit at that moment in time. Yeah, they have to stay till the end when everything is done and dissolved, including the last audit by them, but also making sure there's no outstanding obligations and debts. And you as the acquiring entity, you don't have to assume those debts if they exist out there. So keep that in mind as you're negotiating everything as well. So a lot of pieces tied to that. On the financial pieces, absolutely don't take them at their word, especially if they may not have management in place anymore, and if the board wasn't aware of some of the stuff that might or might not have been going on. So make sure you're looking at, I would recommend the last 2 years of financial statements to go back and see what's out there. And as you're transferring bank accounts, whatever may or may not be left in there, canceling credit cards, etc., make sure that you're not closing an account that money might still be going into so that you don't have issues with that. Also making sure that there are people around who can still help to close accounts or sign accounts over. We have a couple accounts we still can't switch over because of that right now. We're sorting that out. And then also looking at, do they have a PEO if they're a small nonprofit? You have to give a certain amount of notice to that. How are you going to ensure those final payrolls are done and everything tied to that transfer for any employees who might be transferring over, which I'll talk about in a moment. Also, and this question was asked too, for funders out there, do grants transfer over? Do contracts transfer over? Building relationships with the new funders. Do you have to reapply? Is there now a wait period and now you've lost funding for a certain period of time? Rebuilding relationships with existing donors, or because of the challenges that acquiring organization might have lost because of their challenges, how do you go back and rebuild relationships with former donors and find out who they are? Because now you're in the community and helping to convince them that your work will still align with what they want to support and fund as well. And then clarify all of those different responsibilities on that financial side. That's what's going to happen there. And as again, I just emphasize again, they got to complete their last audit. That's not the acquiring entities piece here. And then next piece, again, it all goes about the people. Our most important resource in any organization, but especially nonprofits, is our people and that human resources piece. So are you going to hire the existing staff of that organization being acquired? Some of them, all of them, none of them. And if you're hiring them, how do what you have in your organization, how do their titles, roles, responsibilities, supervision, and pay and benefits align with what the old organization had? Because you're going to have to map that out and help the new ones understand that. And that goes back to what Asia and Lisa said, being transparent. You cannot over-communicate. I learned in my Army days, strategic communication is consistent messaging in multiple media over time. It takes several times for the messages to get through, and you got to do it in different ways. So help them understand. Because if you're bringing employees over, they're used to their old organization and their old culture and way of doing things. It's a grieving process for them. You're going to have to help them through that, but also help to onboard them in to the new culture and help them understand what they're a part of and how they'll be able to continue doing what they were doing just under your new org, and help them feel welcome and supported and not like they failed or anything. So you've got to ensure that solid onboarding experience, figuring out how much accumulated PTO, tenure, all that other stuff will transfer over. help them learn the new culture of the organization they're coming into. But at the same time, your staff, if you're the acquiring organization, make sure that we're understanding the culture of the organization being acquired. We don't want to lose that or create friction points as well. It goes both ways here. And then, again, if you're not hiring any or all of the acquired entity staff, then you're going to have to go through a layoff and termination process, and that's a whole different conversation. But be prepared to think that through as well, especially if you don't have funds to afford them or if what they were doing doesn't align under the new organization here. And then under programming, because it's about programs, right? It's about the mission and what we're doing. What programs were being done at the acquired organization will you be able to continue doing to meet the needs of the community? Are those programs still needed, or how do they get evolved in there? What programs will the acquiring entity bring to that site? Maybe there's strengths that you have that are needed but weren't previously being done there, and now you can bring it into that organization or those areas that were being served. What programs do you have funding for immediately? This goes back to building trust with donors out there. And if funding had already been lost, had programs been lost, looking back a couple of years or more to see what might have been lost along the way. We realized that 2 years ago, PRESA had 32 employees. When we stepped in, they were down to 4, which meant programs had already been going away or we've been working to bring back. How will you fund them? Do you have to have your own funds up front to front that if you have some operating reserves, or do you keep it on hiatus while you then also do stakeholder engagement, focus groups in the community, going out and assess what are the needs or what do people want today, and what trust do they now have with an organization that might have been struggling, in recent times here. And then how do you plan both short and long term for what programs you want to bring in, and how do you clearly communicate those changes to the clients being served? And one of our programs, and I'll just say it, we have PRESA had and still has a very active senior service center. We want that. We want to keep it. It has not stopped. We've kept it going. Although there were some things that were being done that we can't quite do the same way, like no casino trips, and how the bingo's funded is being done a little bit differently now. But we are still working to help make them happy and make sure they get fed and socialize and have all these fun activities to do with their input in a way we can do it in a legal way here. And then in that, don't forget about the data. You need to know it. Your funders need to know it. You got to know what data systems are being used, what tracking systems, how are you providing data, training on it, changing whatever needs to happen there. Don't forget the data piece. I know Kat loves it when I say that too. And then on marketing and communications here, honor the legacy of that entity being acquired. Think about the legacy of Alpha Home. And we talked about San Pedro Playhouse and Classic Theater, shorter term, longer term orgs. You don't want to lose that. So we've actually renamed the PRESA Community Center. It's the Family Service PRESA Community Center. So we're keeping that 50-year-old legacy and honoring of their work that they have done all those years and their heart that's in the community and part of that. But yet we've added in the layering of family service as another deeply rooted organization as well. And our signage, our branding, our social media, we're updating all of that as we speak to capture that history, but also showing that this is now family service, because we have to be able to show that piece as well out there. And then joint press release we did. We are working on an open house or community event in that space to help with that transition. Again, I talked about the stakeholder input, going out into the community, not just having folks wait to figure you out here. Updating your phones too, by the way. And then making sure, again, that you are ensuring that your acquired staff understand their new mission and how to function under the acquiring organization's umbrella. And also don't forget to secure those long-term records, historical documents, make sure for your retention, requirements, et cetera, that you have all that. Update your storage and retention policies if needed out here. And then if you do have facilities involved, again, look at the condition of the facilities. Is it old? Is it new? Start planning your own life cycle planning on replacement and how you're going to ensure things are done there. New IT if needed, et cetera. Create or update a maintenance, repair, replacement plan, both immediate, short-term, life cycle, gesundheit, long-term. And then also review, are there any existing warranties and repair information that you can tie into? So if an HVAC does break down, it was only a year old, then you can use that warranty so you're not now having to pay out of pocket here. Insurance was mentioned as well. You want to make sure that you transfer yours over to yours, cancel the existing one so you're not paying twice here. If there's vehicles involved, get the titles or liens, whatever's out there, get those transferred. And also don't forget to transfer all your utilities, your IT, cable, whatever it is you've got out there, copiers, phones, etc. here. And then on the, let's see, final thing here, stakeholders again, remember who your stakeholders are. It's all about the clients, your communities that you're serving right up front. Think about the employees of both organizations, the funders involved because they help you to ensure you can do your work, both boards, and who on your form, the acquiring entity board, are any of them going to move on to the new board, either full board members, community members on committees, or advisory board members, et cetera, through that transition. And next slide, please. So final thoughts, keep focused on the why are you doing this? Remember the human factor while you're tending to that legal and business requirements, especially as nonprofits. We're all about people, in our work that we do. And so all the stakeholders realize this is truly emotional for all the stakeholders, everybody involved, especially if that acquired entity has deep roots here. And remember, at the end of the day, this decision was made for a reason. Something was going to have to change. So just realizing that, everybody involved in this acquisition is working together to ensure that needed services will continue, whatever that definition of needed services is, especially if the alternative was just going to shut down and dissolve that organization. How do we keep things going to meet our needs here in our communities? And also understand that acquisitions are intended to strengthen services, not erase them. And as was noted also by several people, times are tough. Funding is a challenge. Our funders don't want us to keep coming up with new ideas and go start our own nonprofits and then figure out where funding comes. No, they want us to all figure out how can we devote our time, talent, treasure collectively in the spaces where we can take that limited resources out in the community and use them where they can be most effectively and efficiently served out there, because working together is definitely now more important than ever. Thank you.
Woo.
I am so glad you covered all that, because as you were talking, I'm like, oh yeah. It's like PTSD sort of, but it was a lot. It was a lot. It's still a lot, yes. So our merger occurred in 2022, and I'll call it a merger because that's what we called it. We didn't know when we started down that path whether it was going to be a merger or whether it was going to be an acquisition. We went into it as partners, like let's all be like equal. And in the end, because Healthy Futures of Texas retained its EIN and the other staff and funding and everything else rolled into that EIN, technically it was an acquisition. But to this day, we call it a merger in honor of the three organizations that merged. So what we did is we had three organizations, one out of Dallas called Interrupt, North Texas Alliance for the Prevention of Unplanned Teen Pregnancy. Long name, they wanted a rebrand. The other one was the Texas Campaign for the Prevention of Unplanned Teen Pregnancy. Long name too, Texas Campaign, Alabama Campaign, all those were rebranding. And they were having a hard time. They were effective and successful, but wanted to do more statewide because they were a statewide organization. Healthy Futures was focused in San Antonio, Austin, and the Rio Grande Valley. We did sexual health education, and we were highly present in the campuses, college campuses, serving young adults with sexual health information. So we were all doing work towards the same mission, right? We were not overlapping. Dallas focused with a federal grant in Dallas ISD and other community organizations. Texas Campaign did lots of webinars, symposiums, et cetera, to train youth-serving professionals and clinics on how they could serve youth better, right? And whereas Healthy Futures did sexual health education for adolescents, young adults, parents, and our community college component and our university component was unique to Healthy Futures. So that was the lay of the land. It was a very friendly merger with a lot of tough times along the way to have tough discussions. The three boards were online with it. They, of course, required heavy due diligence which of course they should. So the way we started is during COVID, the 3 CEOs, the Austin CEO reached out and said, hey, let's talk. Let's see if we should be doing stuff together. Should we be doing back office stuff, share contracts, apply for grants together, share, staffing, or should we merge? And so we started out saying, we're going to explore, and we don't know what we're going to do yet, but we're going to see what's best for the services we do and for the organizations. Fortunately, there was no rush because all 3 organizations were well-funded and stable, right? We ultimately came to the conclusion that a merger would be the best thing to do. So before even getting there, we did all those things you had up there, Mary. We had discussions together, just the 3 CEOs. How do y'all do payroll? How do you do HR? How do you do your board? How do you do this? As just in education of the 3. I will say the thing that stayed till the very end was sharing who funded us. So yeah, nobody wanted to really go there first, like, okay, who are our funders? But we got there, and we did have some common funders, some foundations, and it worked out great. So as we educated our board, did our due diligence, brought the business case to them, the way we did it is we did one business case. Usually I was taking the lead and putting it together, but with the other 2 CEOs and the PowerPoints and all that. And then we, at the same board meetings, our next board meetings, we would share the same information with all 3 boards and bring back any questions they had that we would need to address in the next iteration. So we had 3 boards that we ended up combining, not just combining, but taking some from each one so that we wouldn't have a giant board. We made sure we were diverse geographically, that we well represented each of the organizations. We looked at race, ethnicity. We looked at their expertise, what we needed, all of that. Very early on, we reached out when we were still not public with anything, even to our staff. We reached out to our funders, our foundations. They were amazing. They provided us with new capacity building grants or changed some of our grants to general operating so that we could, use it as needed. There were a couple of funders that were new that do that kind of work. Like, I think it was, I forgot the names, but Dallas Together or something. I think United Way did one in Dallas that it helps bring organizations together. And so we got really good support, and our main goal was we were hoping to just keep funding, right? That they wouldn't say, oh, well, I'm funding you and them, and so now, But we clearly had different work that we did that was not duplicative. So that was very fortunate for us. We early on also reached out to Chris Carmona. I don't know if he's still here, but our auditor, to see what the implications might be financially, things to consider, and of course the legal part. We were advised that it would be better if each organization had their own attorney to look out for their own interests, and so we did do that, and that was very helpful. We also reached out to a consultant because when we learned more, did our research, it's like, man, this is going to take a lot of work. The consultant that we did an RFP, we hired La Piano, which does a lot of this and has done it in Texas, and they structured our approach. Very quick timeline because we wanted to be done by the end of August of 2022. We formed work groups that were combined, like for finance, marketing, people committee, IT, facilities, governance, which covered the bylaws. All those committees were a combination of a board member from each of the 3 organizations, a staff member from each of the 3 organizations at different levels. It wasn't all like just the leadership team. It was whoever had the most expertise. So for like the people committee, the person that had a lot of the expertise was one of our payroll people and the people who handled the insurance, right? So those committees met rapidly and then shared across as needed. So like the people committee, was like, okay, this is the staff we're going to have. We developed our pay grades, job descriptions. We looked at the market for pay. We looked at the pay, which was kind of different from organization to organization, and tried to align the positions in a new org chart that would support the vision for this new merged organization. It was very complicated. We said we would not cut any staff, for one, because we knew that we needed the expertise. We were not trying to be more efficient. Well, we wanted to be more efficient, but not with less money. We were trying to really maximize our impact statewide on the youth, young adults, and parents that we were serving. There were some deal breakers that we had to deal with up front, and we called them deal breakers. And La Piana is who helped us identify what are the deal breakers, because you can't go into this very deeply until you can take care of that. So one deal breaker was that for Healthy Futures, it was like, we do not take a stand on abortion. We're about prevention, access to sexual health education, access to preventive health care for women. And Texas Campaign and Interrupt, we said we can't go forward unless we can all agree on that. And we did. Another deal breaker was the Texas Women's Healthcare Coalition. It's a statewide coalition that Healthy Futures has based out of Austin. They advocate at the Texas legislature for access to preventive health care for women. So very active in the Capitol, testifying, helping write bills. Very conservative, need to be conservative in all our language, right? Because we don't want to tick off any of the legislators that we need to get bills through. On the other hand, we had Interrupt out of Dallas, who was really progressive, always pushing the envelope on stuff that resonated for youth, right? So it was good stuff, but it was going to be difficult to do that to its max and be successful with the coalition. So that was a deal breaker, whether the coalition would stay or have to spin off into something else. We, Healthy Futures, wanted it to stay and consider it a continuum of health care. You start as a youth, young adult, then if you're uninsured or underinsured, you can access preventive health care, contraception, et cetera. So those were deal breakers. And we got through those. Then an early exercise was to look at the 3 missions and see if we could come up with a mission and come up with an equity statement using the 3 equity statements. And so those were upfront work. We were asked not to think about who's going to lead this organization. That's like way farther down the road. So it's not Evelyn's going to be CEO or Molly's going to be CEO. Terry wanted to retire out of Interrupt, so that was okay. So that was kind of, there was a little tension, I guess, like not knowing. My board wanted me to be the CEO, but it was one board. And so then in the end, once we had the 3 boards together, they decided on that. And so that made a difference. You know, it was the board who decided. But it was hard, like not knowing, like, but you went into it really like, I'm going to be leading this either way, whether I'm in this position or another one. So, you know, whatever. So anyway, so that's how that worked. We merged. We were the challenge that was that it was a 3-way merger. Those are don't happen very often. It's usually a 2-way. Another challenge was all the HR part, getting everybody to understand their pay grade, their title, who they now report to. Advocacy, that was a huge deal because of the political environment, even in 2022, more so now. Different audiences, so we communicate to youth, young adults, parents, legislators, community. Communications approaches, we had to agree on that because how do we deal with media inquiries? Do we go solicit? Do we go push the envelope? Do we go do many op-eds? Or how do we pick those? Because an op-ed that might be great for youth sexual health might not be so great for the Capitol, you know. Financials, oh my gosh, that was like the hardest for us anyway. 3 sets of financials, 3 charts of accounts, 3 all the banking, all the stuff you were talking about. If I had to think back, that was the hardest part, is putting all that together and being able to support the new staff, the merged staff, with one financial office. I wish we had added more capacity in that department earlier, and because we had different ways of reimbursing because we were a small organization, it was very cumbersome and hard. The budget was hard to put together, the first budget, because it's all different line items, and now it's all new. And so which line items fed into where, and, from what organization. And so that was challenging. But now, because we're merged and we have more capacity, it's amazing what we've been able to do to create a system where the directors they know their budgets, they're on it. So that was amazing. And then, of course, the norms in the new merge culture. We always referred to legacy Healthy Futures as the old Healthy Futures, and Healthy Futures as the new merged organization, and Legacy Texas Campaign, Legacy Interrupt, to honor that they were there, and whatever we're talking about was from there, but now we're this, right? We did new branding. All the staff, partners, young people were involved in the branding. We did our first strategic plan, formal strategic plan. We developed dashboards, core values, and we have a great involved board. Natalie is here. Natalie Kuhn is on our board. Thank you, Natalie. And we do have a lot of communication. We have cafecito chats, which are Zooms for all of our almost 50 people as a way to communicate. Anyway, it's been great. We have been able to get additional federal funding, which was on the rocks for a little bit, but it's back. But we've been able to get new foundation grants. We're building on our donor base. So there's still so much work to do. We're here in 2025, and there's still so much to do.
Always. Wow. How y'all feeling out there about what you've heard? A lot. It's a lot, right? And what we hope is that you will have some spin-off conversations from what you have heard today. We are curious, though, to know you came in here thinking that you were going to learn everything there was, right? To know about mergers, acquisitions, and strategic partnerships. What was not on your list that you were surprised about when you heard? Just shout it out. What were you surprised about? Scott's going to come around. Surprises? No surprises. Okay. Well, I've got a surprise. One of the things that I'm wondering about, there's a couple, is the whole change management process. And I think, Lisa, you had said early on that you really invested in the people that were working with you to help them understand how to have crucial conversations. I commend you big time for that. And I'm wondering how many of the rest of you up here had actually thought about how could you develop people from this opportunity. Talk about human resources. And even if they didn't stay, guess what? Others that they could help. So that's what I'm curious about. The other thing that I'm curious about is our jobs, our work in San Antonio in particular, it's a family affair. What did you all do for the families? When you talked about uncertainty and everybody else talked about uncertainty, and they'd go home, the people that worked with you every night, I don't know if I have a job. I don't know what's going to happen. Somebody's mad at me now. They're saying this, they're saying that. And yes, the grapevine, all that. Talk with us some about what you did to help that system back at home. Who can help us?
I can help.
Evelyn.
We did a lot of one-on-one communication with staff. We shared with them along the way. We had Zoom calls. When we got together for a symposium where most of the 3 organizations were going to be, we brought the staff together. When we had an org chart, we started sharing with individuals. It was just a lot of communication. There was a lot of, like nervousness, but we kept reinforcing that we're going to keep everyone. You're not going to lose money. You're not going to lose your salary. We'll be making changes. We're here for the mission.
Okay. The other thing that we see is responsiveness. Did you else have any protocols on how responsive you were going to be to the many questions that people had? You did? Tell us.
So absolutely, definitely open door policy. The other thing that we did to help support the employees is we did not have a uniform, but Cenikor had a standard uniform. So we actually had a United Way grant of some money for employee engagement, and we bought uniforms for all of our team. We did retention bonuses so that they could stay during the transition. We identified champions who were those people that like to challenge, like to encounter new things, and they were from the line staff that came forward to help address. And then I made it a point that the minute anybody had a concern, I met with them, I listened to them, and then we had FAQs out there. What does it mean? How's this going to impact? And we heavily, heavily emphasized the positive benefits of the new organization.
So we're going to be closing this up here in a couple minutes, but I do have another question. I want each of you to go through and share when you were all alone, all truly alone by yourself, and you knew that you were faced with this decision making, what was one of the anchors that you said to yourself that kept you, because you had a lot on your shoulders? All of you had a lot. What was the anchor for you, Mary?
So I said at the beginning, it was the needs of the community existed down there in that area. We served down there, but we didn't have a physical presence other than in some of the schools. And so that anchor is knowing that we were going to be able to continue those services and bring our additional family service programs down there to continue to meet the needs in a part of town that absolutely needs these services now more than ever.
And I have a great team that understands that and was right along the way with us, and a supporting board as well.
So it was all about the mission. It was all about serving the community and the clients who need an advocate to stand in the gap. And part of that means is the work is not done. We still have to raise funds. Any grants that Alpha Home San Antonio gets stay here local. They do not go to the bigger nonprofit. That is critical. That means that our funding story had to change with the funders so that they understood we still need your support locally. We still have to bring that money in, but it's due because of the mission. And if you don't have the mission to focus on, then it won't be successful.
People are first, always looking at the humans that we surround ourselves with, our teams, the people we serve. It was always people at the core. I knew that we had to continue telling stories and bringing creativity into the community. It's such an important thing, especially now, and that art really matters. That was my touchstone all the time.
It was about the mission. It was very scary. I knew my board was, like, Evelyn, is this the thing to do? Is this the thing to do? If you say it's a thing to do, we think, we'll support you. If you think that's not the thing to do, then we will take that. And that part was scary because it was like, oh my gosh, this is such a big decision. But, I had to go back to the mission. This will serve more. We have a great team. We've been going through all the steps. And I went back to the steps, I guess, because I'm kind of a process person. So it was like, okay, we did this. We talked to them. We talked to them. Everything is pointing in the right direction. And so let's just do it.
So we need also a confidant. I don't know if you had put that up there in your list of resources for each of these, because you can see the catharsis, the emotion that we all have up here about working together. Hopefully today you did get enlightened. You got some confirmation about that you're on the right track of knowing what is out there. And we want to commend all of you in this room for showing up today and lending your time with us. And Scott, Mercedes, Evita, and all the sponsors, thank you so much for making sure that people are gathering and coming together. And so what is next, Mercedes? What is next, Evita? What is next, Scott?
Oh, speaking of that, what a great segue. And thank you all. Because this panel was awesome, and I know we could go on another hour or two, but because of short time, we do have a couple of future meetings. One is next week, and it hugely follows all this conversation. It is crucial conversations, and it's a 3-hour meeting with a consultant gentleman, a coach out of New Braunfels that we have piggybacked on with Silver Ventures. They are bringing this gentleman in for their team members at Silver, and they are graciously donating his time for us the following day. So that's next Wednesday here from 8:30 to noon. We will have the same setup, breakfast. We already have 80 people registered, but we will be pushing that out again. So if you aren't aware of it, you aren't on any of the, you are on email lists because you're here. But if you aren't aware of it, please reach out to Mercedes or I. We have got cards in the back. We'd love to get you registered. And then on September 25th, the Beyond Funding group will host a workshop session, small group tables, breakouts, with local consultants on topics that are of interest to you all. It could be this, it could be crucial conversations, it could be strategic planning, it could be board engagement, board development. So look for that. Those details on that will be coming soon. We will push that out in addition to Kronkowski Foundation, Area Foundation, and United Way. But thank you all for your time this morning. Again, another round of applause for our group.